The problem is this is all centered around profit. And what I want everyone to realize is that social media outfits have thousands of programmers that their only task is dedicated to addicting your eyeballs to stay on their product. So if you're trying to addict everyone and you have a team, thousands of people that are dedicated to figuring out the psychology to hold your eyeballs on their target, why do you think as a parent you're going to win? Because you're you and your kids. You have an army you're facing, and you think you can do a better job of protecting your family than society is doing, making your family succumb to the pressure of society, which is join social media. So unfortunately, and I hate to call it this, but that pressure, that peer pressure, has actually motivated people to actually, in my opinion, give up their values for peer pressure. And it's very sad because we have become genned up. Genned up means we're angry all the time because we are oversaturated with information that we don't know how to actually deal with the information, so we lash out. People want their agenda heard. They're so excited to actually hear views that actually agree with their worldview, that at the end of the day, they are going to seek out similar views. So what they don't realize is the social media algorithms learn from how they're clicking and what they're looking at and slowly funnel them in to a complete worldview that is completely their view. So what they don't realize is they're not looking at the news. They're not looking at real information. They're looking at curated information that is designed to delight them because it's their choices that they're looking at. So eventually you're looking at your own biases and your worldview is completely your bias. Then one day you meet someone that has been going down their funnel and their worldviews are completely different. Then you get genned up and all excited because how can this person not believe your views? Well, guess what? Silicon Valley succeeded. They kept you two on two different tunnels or funnels. They got you so excited about giving you information that you all wanted so badly that you forgot that there's a whole world around you. And when you had to interact with the world, you couldn't because the world had different information than your worldview. And you got angry and you think the world is against you because it doesn't understand you. Thank you, social media. That's the dilemma our kids are in. They feel unheard. Of course they feel unheard because their funnel is not going to be repeated by someone else's funnel. And that is the societal pressure our kids are under.
I think that a lot of that is happening.
You know, this focus on children is really important, but you also didn't overlook the impact on adults because I don't think we are aware of that either. And this social media, if you think about how long Facebook has been a part of many, many people's lives, to a lot of folks, that's their main contact to their family, their main contact to society as a whole now. And these are people that are not young. These could be people, you know, in their 60s and 70s even. And so as people have been captured, so the way I look at it, the Facebooks and the Googles and the rest of them, their primary function is actually surveillance. Their goal is to surveil you and develop a profile of you, a dossier, and then use it to do what you were describing, where they then throw back at you the messaging you want. But they're also then taking what they know about you and selling it to others so you could be more easily manipulated by that army of people you spoke about.
I mean absolutely.
How far off?
Because the information they're collecting on you in your funnel becomes the advertising weapon that the advertisers can use against you because they know everything you like. It's all about making money. One thing I want to point out, the PornHub stuff is really key. Do you think that the state PornHub closing down the state of Texas, do you really think they closed down the state of Texas? No. VPNs. You can get onto PornHub anytime. Just go to a VPN and put in any other state, and bam, you're in. A VPN, if people don't know, is a virtual private network. It allows you to basically spoof or basically pretend that you are somewhere else going on to the internet. So you can pretend that you're in a different state, and then get onto PornHub. It works. So that hasn't stopped anything. So the bigger question, which I want to talk to PornHub about, is PornHub says, well, the reason why we can't put a firewall up on the whole site is because that discriminates against people of poorer means who would like to get a dose of pornography, and we want to keep it open. But then I want to ask them, so at what point in your figuring do you feel that the loss of innocence is important? So what is the age in which the loss of innocence is okay? They can't answer that. I can't answer that. But what's interesting is, let's talk about the advertising behind the free stuff. So if you go and watch PornHub's free stuff that's accessed without a firewall and anyone can see, it is saturated with advertising. So if you go to the section now that's brand new, that's not really an agenda, you have male agenda, and you used to have female agenda, but now that went to lesbian agenda, then to gay agenda, and now to she-male agenda. So now you're going to find she-male. So let's talk about just the she-male category, because this is super interesting. You get into the she-male category and you see these videos, which men are men that believe they are women, and they're usually taking steroids, and they usually grow breasts. So now that I'm just trying to describe what the she-male category is. So now that you have this category. So this category now is a primary category. One of the first categories PornHub is pushing. How much money do you think is in the business of making a man a she-male? And when you think of all the advertising that goes on after you watch these videos, and what they're advertising is all the apparatus you need to become a she-male. So if a man goes all the way with all the surgeries, then they have a lifetime of gadgets they need to support this move. It's a billion-dollar industry, and it's only getting larger. So the more you indoctrinate people to do these surgeries and to change their sexuality, and what you can justify, what I can't justify is that in society, we've gone from a 1% or 1 to 2% of the society being identified as she-males by psychiatrists, etc., 20 years ago, 30 years ago, to now we have a 15 to 17% increase. That doesn't seem natural. I don't believe that's just because they're all coming out of the woodwork, and I don't believe that has anything but to do with the access this lifestyle has had and how it influences highly suggestible people, and especially young folk, that this is thrilling, and many people need something to attach to. So if you show them something that's exciting, that's different, that's maybe rebellious, that they can rebel against their peers and they can actually get a thrill from, they might do it. But now let's talk about, since now we've got a little bit of a track record, 5 to 6 years, of how many of the first kids that did the actual operation have incredible regrets for changing their sexuality. So look, I'm not telling you there are not kids out there that really are suffering from sexual dysphoria where they're not sure who they are. That's a real thing. And my parents, and this is another story which we will get into a little later, but my parents were entertainers in the entertainment industry, and they did a lot of movies about sexuality, and they were actually trendsetters. So I do know, and I have met, because of my parents, many people that suffered many different psychological ailments due to not finding their sexuality in their lifetime. So it is real, this stuff. To create an industry out of this is just, in my opinion, sick, because we're dealing with the psychology of people. And when you do these things to people, change them with hormones and surgeries, you're changing them forever. It's a decision that is forever. And I don't think our kids, before they're 18, at least 18, should ever have access to those decisions, because they're forever.
Let me throw something in here. So if you look at New Jersey public schools have experienced from 2019 to this year a 4,656% increase in children identifying as non-binary, 4,656%. Now, anybody that sees that has to stop and say, what's impacting these children? And you made the point that they say, well, that this has increased so dramatically. This is a perfect example. The answer that we get from the sexuality industry, right, because it really is, as you put it, it's an industry, is that, well, they were just oppressed before and wouldn't admit that they were non-binary. Is that possible, that we've had 4,656% in one state's public schools because up to now they felt the need to hide?
Let me just bring up something, because this is where we tend to never go back and look at recent history. So we just have to go back to the 60s. Hippies. Hippies were the same thing as what's going on with sexuality today. It is the same. Mm-hmm. So this is just a trend. And the irony about this is when this is over in 10 years, there's going to be a lot of young adults that are going to be very screwed up because they had surgeries that now they don't want. And I'm sorry, my parents studied this stuff. This is true. And it's starting to unravel. And I'm so sad because there are real cases and real people that need these surgeries. I'm not joking, that really have been born with a terrible identity crisis. But I think so many today are just doing it because it's rebellious, it's cool, and because it's being super promoted by the porn industry.
That's a critical point. I was in a school recently, about a year ago. It was a middle school. I was there for an event in the evening. And as I walked around from the entrance to this auditorium, I noticed that every bulletin board, every doorway had a trans or gay pride emblem of some kind of sexuality propaganda. The minute you walked in the doors of this school, there were banners up on the walls that were sort of 6 or 8 feet, sized, that were promoting this focus on sexuality. So when I think about what you've just covered a little bit, right, this social media piece, you've got a constant promotion, a pounding and pounding on these children about sexuality and promoting and making it cool, making it special. You want notoriety? You want to be called courageous? Announce you're non-binary. You go into schools and you get this everywhere you turn in many public schools, hence the New Jersey experience. Then you've got, if you're in government or business, you're getting it through your human resources group or through some agency that's promoting inclusion. And then you've got that sort of the gay pride media machine. So if I'm 8 years old and I'm getting it from all those fronts, and all of it with all the colors and the drama and the sparkles, it's all designed to really get me to react very positively to it. It's not surprising to me that we've seen this increase. And one case that explains what you're saying exactly is the case of a very brave woman named Chloe Cole, who has come out and told her story of going through this and the suffering she's experienced.
Absolutely. A little bit of background. My mom was the British actress Anne Haywood, and she did the Fox with my father, who produced it. It was a D.H. Lawrence subject. It was with Sandy Dennis, Claire Delay, and my mom. It got Oscar nominated. It won the Oscar for Best Music. She got the Golden Globe, won Best Picture for Golden Globe, and it won the Moscow Film Festival, Cannes Film Festival, etc. The movie played in Westwood in Los Angeles for 6 months. It is a cult classic that you can find on, American movie classics every year. It's now been hijacked by the lesbian and gay community, so it's in their category.
What's the movie called again?
The Fox. Mm-hmm. And The Fox was a movie about two ladies on a farm. One lady was actually a lesbian. The other lady had not found her sexuality yet. A man appears. She falls in love with the man. And the lady is extremely upset by that, and someone ends up dead in the movie. It's a very interesting psychological thriller based around sexuality. My parents then went on to do they did the Fox, then they did Good Luck Miss Wyckoff, which was extremely controversial, where my mom gets raped by a black man as a Kansas school teacher. She gets ostracized in the community, kicked out. He was the football star, and he gets to move on in his career there. And it was about how, the reverse discrimination of how a white woman couldn't possibly have degraded herself so sufficiently, and then she gets kicked out of society. That's a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. But making the movie was way too much for the American audience. But this is my point. My parents were vested in breaking open sexuality because in England, homosexuals were getting castrated up into the 60s. I want to repeat that. Homosexuals were being surgically castrated in England. And what was important about this is that my parents thought that was completely wrong. So what's very interesting is, on the one hand, I am very, very saddened by the abuses that has happened to homosexuals and lesbians throughout the ages. There's definitely been discrimination, and England is proof of it. However, where we've gone today is too far, and I am going to fight for the innocence of our children with my dying breath.